So it's Jimmy Hocking here from the Screaming Jets, and I'm here talking to Chris Peters today, and we're going to talk about the upcoming tour, of course, but our new album, which is out this week, uh, the 6th of October, I'm pretty sure, called Professional Misconduct.
Beautiful, Jimmy. Thanks for joining us today, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on board.
Oh, well, so as you say, the Screaming Jets will drop your new album, Professional Misconduct, on October the 6th, which is this Friday. So how are you feeling about it?
I'm excited. I mean, obviously, it's been a strange couple of weeks in the ranks of the band, and so we've had a lot to deal with. But really, this has been an album in the works for a couple of years. You know, I think the genesis of this record started in the lockdown days when we were experimenting with some remote recording when we did the re-release of the All for One 30th anniversary record and an EP, the Bitter Pill EP. And Scotty Kingman, our other guitar player, the great Scotty Kingman, he had started the ball rolling. He was trying to get Paulie to get motivated with some writing. So Scotty came up with a bunch of guitar riffs that he sent to Paulie to get things underway. And that's kind of the starting point. We started bouncing around these kind of like cut and paste riff ideas and banging them into some kind of arrangement shape. And that was really the genesis of what became this Professional Misconduct album now, so 3 years later. So it's been quiet. So the fact that we actually started in such a weird way and have come up with what I think is a great record is actually very rewarding.
So tell us a bit more from a musical point of view, bro, and what you were going for with it, because it's not as balls out rock as what you have put out, but it's more the better for it. But tell us what you were going for.
Well, it's an interesting thing, you know. I think that after the band's been around as long as we have, we're just trying to pick songs we think are the most worthy, and sometimes it just so happens that they might all be heavy rock songs. And sometimes it's not always the way. But I got to say, when we came to selecting material, I think we recorded about 18 songs or parts thereof as we approached the deadline for this record. And really, the tracks that get legs are the ones that are across the line first in some respects. There's some things we thought, we've got a good idea here or there, but I don't think we were ready to just say that's finished, let's just release that. There's things we wanted to work on a little bit more, and that's just the kind of process of songwriting and creating a record now. So it might disappoint you to learn that the answer is I had this clear picture and we're waiting for this certain kind of sound and this certain kind of idea. We kind of weren't doing any of those things. What we're doing was literally seeing what material was going to work and what things we would finish that would make sense to make a record, and what was kind of cohesive.
And then the name Professional Misconduct, mate, that pretty much sums up the Screaming Jets' whole career in 2 words.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, Dave come up with that, and when it comes to names, I think that almost none of the tracks on the album have the same name as they did when we first started those songs. So we're forever spitballing ideas throughout the process of song names and album names. And I not that I can remember every name that we came up with, but I'm pretty sure most of the album names that we were coming up with on the fly, especially from Gleeso, were not things that we want to talk about in public. So, it just turns out that way by the end. We come up with a good idea. Probably it's almost like the last week or something. Go, oh, that's a good name. We'll do that.
Now, Heavy recently published a review on the album, so for something a little bit different, mate, I'm going to read through what we said about each song, and you can tell us if we're on the right path or not, and then just tell us a bit more about the song as you do it. Is that all right?
Sure, yeah.
Have you read the review?
I don't think I have.
All right, well, I'll start off with the intro and tell us what you think of that. So we put, one major thing I've always admired about Aussie rock bands is very few of them allow themselves to get stuck in a recurring time warp. By that, I mean that I can name on one hand a number of our bands that have foregone the refreshing creativity of writing and recording new music in favour of recycling familiar favourites and travelling the same merry-go-round of life that they first started on decades ago. Not that there's all that much wrong with that scenario if you're happy doing it, but I, for one, still love the exhilaration of finding new favourite songs from old favourite bands and still feeling as though I'm part of their forward trajectory rather than reliving glory days in a time capsule. Maybe that's just me, but bear with me, I do have a point here. Which brings me to the Screaming Jets. One of the few bands in the world that could have stopped writing after their debut album and floated through the rest of their career on the back of one song. The Jets, although to their credit, they still play that particular song with an energetic passion at every show 30 years later, have continued pumping out new material, much to the adulation of their ever-growing legion of fans. But age inevitably catches up with the best of us, and despite touring harder than ever before, the Screaming Jets have allowed 8 long years. I just lost it there. I've allowed 8 long years to pass between drinks, and the rest of us are thirsty. The boys are about to rectify that blot on their character when they drop album number 10, Professional Misconduct, on October 6th. Will it be worth the wait? Let's find out. How's that for the intro, mate? Yeah, right?
That sounds good. I like that. And you're kind of right, you know, but even as you're saying that, it's amazing to think it's 8 years since we did, I guess that's the Chrome album was the last real original release that we had done. But, you know, I've doing some teaching as well. One of my students has left here, another adult student. And in the life of a young person, which of course the Screaming Jets were when the first All For One hit the scene, it's a cracking record. You know, time is of a different value. You know, you're in high speed mode your whole life when you're young. You've got so much to prove. You've got so many ideas. You've got so much to do. And as we get older, you know, what happens is the time is a different commodity. You know, it's easy to lose 5, 7 years in between projects because you're just busy with life and you're just busy with kids and family and all those different things and trying to, you know, keep the gang together and God knows what. There's just so many things going on that you're just not in the same, flow chart as you were 30 years ago. So it's not by design that we don't have creative output. You know, we're probably doing all umpteen different projects and other things as they present themselves. But this is the work. This is how it works as an adult. You know. You know, when you're 17 to 20, a million things happen in your life in 3 years. But when you're like 50 to 53 or whatever it is, it's like 3 tax returns. It's not even like a big deal.
So, lead single "Nothing to Lose" kicks off with a typically stirring, harmonious intro before guitarist Scotty Kingman and Jimmy Hocking get to work and lay down the grooves. Frontman Dave Gleason joins the chorus asking, "What have I done? What can I do?" To which there is no straight answer. It's been 8 years, Mr. Gleason. Fuck knows what you've done, but I bet you enjoyed it. By now, the Screaming Jets are seasoned professionals, road warriors who moonlight as a rock band, and all the years of service to rock and roll are openly on display from the outset, with the boys slipping straight into a pocket and shutting out everything bar their music. A well-placed guitar run spices things up a bit before ripping into solo territory that quickly flashes from earshot and blends quietly back into structure before resurfacing towards the track's end and carrying it home with a restrained elegance.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite songs, I might say, on the album. I like, you know, we all brought what we do to the table when it comes to these tracks. You know, the original versions of these that were being kind of arranged by Scotty and Paul before we kind of got in the studio. You know, they were very straight. You know, the guitar riffs were kind of like one riff for the verse and another riff for the chorus, and that's kind of what happened. It all kind of just like riffed along. And then Scotty came up with that little breakdown section at one point in this, but then I added like the guitar melodies over the top of everything. That's kind of been my role in the band for a long time now. And so, you know, like Steve and Scotty will say to me, Steve Jones, our producer, will say, we want a melody at the front of this song. We want something, you know, a little bit memorable to lead us into it. So I'll sit around for a couple of hours with my vintage guitars, you know, and I'll go through a whole bunch of ideas before I'm happy to show what I've got, which being that little simple thing, which happens at the start of the tune. And so these are like the spices that I'll add, and I'll add arpeggios to the chorus and stuff, and I'll kind of like harmonically flesh out the basic riffs that Scotty and Paul came out with. That's kind of what I've done in this band for a long time, like I said. And lyrically, I mean, Paul came up with those lyrics. You know, Scotty came up with a lot of the original riffs, but Paul is really the guy we look to for lyrical structure. You know, he's always been a tenacious rider. He's relentless. He's up all night riding all the bloody time. Well, of course he has been. And that's kind of like the source of probably the Jets' ethos in some ways, lyrically, when it comes to that stuff.
Hey, so Come Down starts with Dave accusing us of taking his cake and eating it, but he soon gets off his high horse and his head back in the game as his trusty bandmates rush to provide sonic comfort. This track rocks in all the right places, chugging along at a steady pace until another guitar rip builds momentum before soaring into the darkness of meticulously placed junctures. If this song isn't in the set list next time I catch a Jets, then I probably won't hear it. But I would bet the neighbour's cat that it would be.
Yeah, it's also, this would be one of the oldest songs in the kind of set that we picked for this album. I think we might have started this one really early. In fact, it may even date back to before the lockdown, and before, it might be something that we might have demoed some time ago before this session started. So I recall, and I'm speaking just from my own perspectives here. I really wanted to hear a little bit more in those choruses, and before we even had a lyric, I was coming up with those ideas, which are da little arpeggios once again for the choruses, and they kind of led to, I think, the vocal melody that ended up happening. So, it's a great thing that the Screaming Jets is still a collective when it comes to creating new art, because we kind of need what each other do. We'll have a start and a genesis and some, maybe even a title or a lyrical idea, but all of us coming to the table and bringing our skill set to it is really what makes it happen. And Cam McGlinchey has been a great asset, the last 5 years, because he's a songwriter as well, so he understands very well about creating good rhythmic structure to what we're doing. So, we're still a great gang of musicians to work together.
So No Reason is a stripped back, raw sounding and pleasant rock number that allows the Jets breathing space. A good friend of mine once told me it's not what you put into a song that makes it special, it's what you leave out. Until now, I had no idea what he was talking about, but the penny seems to have finally dropped. It would be easy to wail over the top of things in a song like this. Hell, some people would actually expect it. But the fact every note is crisp and clear without competing with or against each other definitely stands out here.
Yeah, I think that you're right. There's a lot to be said about what you don't play, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'll divulge to you, because sometimes I'm the great overplayer in it. I'm the one who'll want to rip out a whole bunch of stuff, and it will rein me back in, and it'll be like, let's just not play all through that. Let's just hear. So, but what happens is, when it comes to the recording process, often we over-record, and then we let our ears, and of course our Steve James, who's our producer once again, he's such an asset to this band, kind of edit what's necessary, in and out. And we have a saying, when it comes to recording, say, guitar licks, and Scott and I will both do this. We'll record a bunch of stuff if we're going to be doing the solo and maybe some stuff in the intro and outro, and we'll say, I don't expect this all to get used, but I figure it's better to be looking at it than looking for it. So if it comes to mixing the record and we're thinking, it'd be great if we had just a little guitar moment here or something. If it's not on tape already, or if it doesn't exist, we can't do anything. But if we put in all sorts of stuff, and that we know is probably not going to all get used, we can decide to use it if we want. We'll be like, yeah, hang on, I just want to hear one lick. I think in No Reason, there's just one little guitar lick at the very end, which I do like a little flickering. It's almost like a country kind of thing, and I probably did that a couple of times in the song recording, but we only decided to use it once at the end, and that's how we'll go about making things work.
Yeah, cool. Recently released single Second Chance meanders out of the box with a rhythmic shuffling tempo that is instantly addictive. Early reviews have labelled Second Chance as one of the finest ballads of the Jets' 35-year career, and at this stage I find it hard to disagree. Not that I'm a fan of the ballad, as we well know, but I'm not even close to throwing something at the stereo, which has to be a good sign. A beautifully soulful guitar solo, and no, I'm not even going to try and guess which of the two alternating lead guitarists is playing at any set juncture, elevates things to an even calmer path, And for a brief moment there, I could almost swear I heard Dave crying into his pillow, but I'm not sure to wager anyone's pat on that one.
Well, I have mixed feelings about the ballad too, because I don't know that I want too many of them Screaming Jets, but I really like it when we come up with something melodic and that works as a song for the man in the street. You're not necessarily a hard rock fan. I think that's an asset to to expanding our brand in some respects. But that's actually me playing the solo, so I'm glad you like it. But I got to say, uh, I got to say, we that song was really long when we first finished it. It was like 6 minutes long,
Wow.
and we had all this stuff we were doing, and we really had to do a lot of rethinking to make it a more palatable time length. And one of those things was that we lost a couple of verses. We had a lot of lyrics in the tune. There were good lyrics, but there was just a lot of it. And the guitar solo was quite long. So I took a long time to adjust to that guitar solo because we had to decide which parts of what I'd already recorded, because it's kind of happened in post production, we were going to keep and and kind of edit it down, about 30 seconds or something. So that was an uncomfortable moment for me, because I'm like, well, I don't know, this leads to that part, yada yada yada. So it's good to hear that when people hear it with fresh ears, without knowing the machinations of what we've had to do to create an outcome, that it doesn't sound kind of jumpy or something like that, because now I'm used to it. Now I can hear the version we've finished with. But in my head, up until a few weeks ago, I still had like 3 or 4 edits of that song that I couldn't quite separate.
Wow. Hey, Throwing Shade is a straight up rock banger, bouncing to life with renewed vigor. Although more of a blues driven rock track, it still gets the juices flowing enough to almost throw my back out, which nearly has me pressing the backward skip button. If there's one noticeable fact so far on professional misconduct, it would be the more balanced nature of music inherent on each song. Gone is the carefree, almost reckless sense of craziness that filtered through almost every song. And in its place is and trust me, I can't believe I'm saying this, more mature approach that only the soothing touch of contentment can bring. Screaming Jets no longer have anything left to prove to themselves, to their fans, to anyone. And with this notion comes a cathartic realization that with no expectation comes no pressure. And with that in turn comes absolute freedom.
Well, it's an interesting observation about your progress as a musician in your life, and it's not a conversation that every band is going to be able to have, because the amount of bands, as you said in the outset, who have been around for the Jets, for example, started 33 years ago, that are still creating new records. Is that many these days, because, like it used to be that a band would have a 3 or 4 year career. That was kind of normal in the world of rock and roll. And then you had single artists who might break away from their band, the James Rains, who started off in a band and then end up going solo, that kind of person. And then they write off their own, off their own volition and kind of write and record that way. Whereas as a band, it's kind of hard to do that. But I would expect, and maybe this is just me, but I would expect to progress as a musician and as a player. I'm not personally satisfied with being the same player I was 30 years ago. Joined the band in 93, that's 30 years. And, I've always been into music and musicianship as a real thing. So I would want to get better. I don't think standing still is the way to do this. I think that your journey, and we hate that word in the Screaming Jets, but your journey is something that should be an evolution of who you are. And so if we weren't getting better at certain aspects of music, of certain ideas of creativity, and in certain ways of understanding what's necessary for the track and how to play, I'd be pissed off. I wouldn't be satisfied with that. I think that if you're not getting better, if you're a sports person, it's expected that you would evolve into, from one kind of player to another, I suppose, right? I don't know why that wouldn't be the same for somebody who's spending their life committed to an instrument or to their art. I think progress is essential.
Hey, Lying With Her has an instant country feel to it, a soul acoustic guitar gently plucking away over a dreary landscape of broken hearts and dreams. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel the warmth of the campfire as you imagine Dave sitting on a log, guitar in hand, Cobra hat delicately balancing on an unseen weathered face as the ghosts of 1,000 fallen brothers dance through the flames. Fuck me, this song must be good. Where the fuck did I just pull that from?
I like your imagery, and we could have used those when we were coming up with lyrics. I, but, Steve Balby and Dave wrote that song together like a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure. I think Dave was just hanging out, probably having beers with Steve, and Dave loves that kind of. I don't want to say country, but like there's that kind of alt country scene, like the bad boys of the old fashioned country. You know, Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash, young Johnny Cash. They were people that Dave was really influenced by as a lyricist and a songwriter, and so he likes those mental pictures that like the tagline "Lying With Her, Thinking About You." It seems to mean a thing. I wouldn't be so sure. It could mean a number of things, and knowing how Galito's line worked. And I really like putting stripped back song on a record like this because it's a little bit of an ear break and really serves to create an album feel rather than like a song by song feel to me. I mean, I still love those old Pink Floyd records. Call me an old hippie, but like they're still like a bit of a journey. Like throughout the record. And it's a bit of a lost art in a new way that records are downloaded and stuff, I guess, these days. But Scotty picked up that 9-string guitar that was kind of a piece of shit around the studio. I'm amazed it played in tune, and he and Dave sat there and recorded it. And then I'm a keen mandolin player. Once again, I'm a super nerd, but I then added some little mandolin parts, just like I did back on the Gorilla album when we did like Impossible and tracks like that. So it's been the other instrument that's kind of pushed in the corner, but I often add mandolin to Screaming Jet songs, here and there. But it's a beautiful song and it's very haunting. I agree. It's got this really kind of like desert image kind of vibe in a sense, But it's a love song, but it might not be a love song in the way that you think it should be.
Oh, very cool. Okay, Shadows fires up with an impromptu sounding drum roll that soon finds solace as the empty pockets of music once more dominate the sonic landscape of Less Is More. While certainly having moments of pent-up rock aggression sporadically forcing their way to the forefront, Professional Misconduct is much more than just another rock album. I'm sure there will be some who cry foul that the Jets have let their music do practically all the talking so far, but let's face it, those people probably wouldn't even be happy with a free McHappy Meal.
Well, you're right, because there comes a point too where, I mentioned being progressive, within yourself, but I mean, I heard a Bob Dylan interview a little while ago, and he said he could never write those songs that he wrote when he was 24. He could never write them again because he's not that person. It's not in him anymore. And in a way, that's true for us. We're splitting the people were when we were, running around like it's mid-20s. We're middle-aged blokes now, but we still love music and we still love rock. We still love what we did in those days. But like I know Scotty came up with that riff. It's a beautiful riff. Going down the guitar neck. I instantly liked this song as soon as we heard the really basic structures of it. And but I think it was a song that we didn't have lyrics for right until the end. Like literally, it was a bunch of guitar riffs until the last week. It almost didn't make it, I think, this song onto the record. And quite literally, the last part of our recording process, which happened at Sing Sing Studios in Melbourne, partly, we started at home. I did a bunch of guitar parts at home as well. And then we ended up in a studio called Red Engine Studios in Brisbane. And, I remember being up there for the final vocal sessions, and I'd done some final solos and stuff like that. And I went down and literally got lunch down the road and hung out, looking at girls from the coffee shop. And when I came back, they'd got these lyrics and stuff together. Paulie had gone to his like mountain of lyrics that he travels around with, and he and Dutch put together what became the final vocal for the song. And I was like, thank God, because I love this. I love the sound of it. You know, I love the vibe of the chorus and the middle section. And Scotty plays a great solo on this track. And so the fact that it made it was actually really music to my ears. I was really happy with that.
Crash Out of Time swaggers up next. A cool guitar riff giving that strut kind of vibe that is swept away by a solid tempo from fresh drummer Cam McGlinky, who has settled into the band as though he's been there from the start. The man is a weapon live, but shows off his chops and grooves with greater restraint on this, his first album, and hopefully not his last. Midway through the song, a totally unexpected guitar-driven breakdown kicks things up another gear, and now the Jets are just showing off. And why shouldn't they when they can put out high-quality music like this?
Yeah, there's some great stuff. Scotty came up with that middle section. I'm pretty sure. Although I need to listen to it again to refresh my memory. But yeah, it's almost got like a, even though it's kind of upbeat, it's got like a funk basis in a way. And funk is not my favorite thing to bring to a rock record, I got to say, but that's just me. But you know, Cam's been a great asset in this band. He's been in the band 5 years now, and because he is also, I said before, he's also a songwriter, so he's got a really good handle on what's necessary for the track. You know, whereas me, I'll be shredding all over everything. You know, I don't care. Just give me the guitar I want to play. You know, but he had a great sense of restraint for where the feels need to be. So you know, it was a pleasure to hear this one come together too. It was another good song.
Give Me What I Want reverberates to life as the second last song and immediately brings the feels with an almost Tex Perkins type vibe and underlying focal point. Dave's voice has copped a bit of a workout over the course of the album, but it doesn't sound like he's raised even a drop of sweat. But then why should he? He does enough of that on stage. This is another blues-based, guitar-infused slab of awesomeness that does exactly what it has to without trying to dazzle us with speed or baffle us with bullshit.
Yeah, baffling people with bullshit was kind of part of the Jets' ethos, though. That's the thing. But I agree. You know, there's, and I guess, you know, within the ranks of the band, we actually bring a lot of different influences to the table. And I'm often saying, you know, I think that if everybody like thinks the same way exactly, you know, if everybody just likes this kind of rock music, it doesn't make for good original art.
Yeah.
Well, certainly not in our camp, you know. So you've got me. I love old blues. You know, I got a blues thing going on the side as well, and so I love that kind of bluesy thing. And you know, Paulie, dear Paulie, we departed bass player. His background was originally in like, you know, British mod rock kind of vibe, like back when he started, you know. And then there's Dave who loves, like I said, this alt country and kind of roots thing as well. But we don't want to play that necessarily. We want to play it in a rock sensitivity, but those influences become clear. You can't escape them. You know, they kind of, you know, I wear the blues thing on my sleeve a little bit because it's, you know, so many of the players I grew up listening to, even the rock players, you know, even the Gary Moores of the world, you know, that I love, you know, they're rock guys, but they've still got one foot in a blues ethos. So it travels with you, you know. And so yes, it's a rock song. You're right. It does have these elements, you know, that, you know, like you said, Tex could have sung that song. But, you know, and Dave's performances on this record are so great. You know, he's never stopped singing. He's always been in good voice. He's not somebody who walked away from singing for years and then came back to it and had to get back to being match fit. It's always something he's done. So we always get great vocals. You've got great tone in his voice. I'm a little bit jealous of the tone that he can just have naturally, I've got to say.
A Speed Quack is given the task of taking us home, and it sounds like this particular duck might have taken to his stash just a touch too often. There's a rollicking fun ride to the finish line that doesn't even bother pausing to look back. The duck is a perfect embodiment of where the Screaming Jets are at right now. Head down, bum up, tail defiantly in the air, and if you want to get down and dirty and quack with them, then jump on board. But if not, their feathers won't be ruffled in the slightest.
Well, I can tell you this. Here's something from the insider knowledge that Paulie, one of his favourite animals is a duck.
Okay.
Not for all the right reasons, but he loves the duck, and he'd say the duck is a bit like him. say. So on the surface of the duck, it's smooth and just cruising along on the surface of the water, all right? But underneath duck, the legs are going batshit crazy and everything's happening to try and keep the duck afloat. So there's all this manic stuff happening that nobody sees to make the duck appear like he's just gliding along. And for Paulie, that was a description of him and his life. So I didn't actually think that the title Speed Quack was going to make the album. I thought we'd probably change something else. But nonetheless, that's what it is. And in a way, to know and love Paulie is to realise that Speed Quack, in a sense, was a great swan song for him, because that was him. He was chaos below the surface, but to see him out just in the world, you know, he was a smooth guy that women just loved, you know, and yet, you know, to drive with him and to pick him up, as I would do, to go to the airport and stuff when we'd be on tour, he was just like this manic character, you know. So that's kind of where that title comes from.
Yeah. Now, before I read you the closing bit, mate, I'll just let you know that I got this album probably in mid-August, so I wrote it before Paulie passed. But the way I've finished this is quite cool. Have a listen. What do you think of this? So I didn't change the review at all afterwards. I kept it all exactly as I wrote before it all happened. So in answer to my earlier question of was the wait worth it, that would be an emphatic yes, maybe even a fuck yes. Welcome back, kids. P.S. You may have noticed I didn't reference Paul Wasseen on bass throughout the entire review, and there is good reason for that. It's Paul fucking Wasseen, bass playing god and lyrical mastermind. What's left to say?
Fucking oath, man. Well, you know what, Paulie, you know, what happens from this point is anybody's guess, because Paulie has been this driving force that even with all the chaos, even with you know, all the sort of the shambolic chaos that we can be behind the scenes, somehow, because of what we all bring to it and what Paulie's amount, like the body of work that he still has behind the scenes. Like, we could probably do another album, you know, next month and still have 8 unfinished songs that Paul, you know, has put into orbit, kind of thing. So, you know, that may happen. I kind of hope it does in some respects. But you know, what we do without that great guy is tricky now, because he's been such a driving force behind the creativity of the band. Like, we can all play and go out and do that stuff, but even when we did Chrome, you know, just like I alluded to earlier before about the fact that Scotty got the project kind of going by getting guitar riffs to Paul. You know, with Chrome, Dave and I did that. We started writing some songs together with Dave's lyrics and some guitar parts I'd come up with, and some of which did make the Chrome record. But all through that early stages, Galisso and me were saying, maybe the fact that we're starting to write songs will make Paulie pull his finger out and write the next record, because we really wanted him to do it. You know, it was kind of like we were wedging him. We were kind of like goading him by look, right song, we'll just do it, and all the while hoping that's exactly what would happen, and it kind of did, you know. So, you know, we've got a lot to think about, and we've got a lot to process about the loss of Paulie. But holy shit, the guy was a fucking genius, I'll tell you that.
For sure. And you guys had a tour originally planned for the album before Paulie's passing, but yeah, I believe you're going to continue and still complete that tour. Is that right?
We are. You know, look, our first reaction after Paulie's passing was like, you know, we won't do anything. What can we do? You know, like, it hit us too heavily straight away. But, you know, we've had some pretty regular Zoom meetings all together, because we're all in different places. And I think now that the feeling is we want people to hear this record. We worked hard on it. It's largely Paul's creative energy on the record, certainly lyrically, and we want people to hear his good works, you know. So it'll be strange going out and doing it with somebody stepping in. I think Darrow's going to do some playing with us. Steve Balby might do some playing with us, and they're just Paulie's mates basically coming in to cover for him. There'd been discussion of permanent bar, you know, at this point in time, because this just can't have a discussion. and we want people to appreciate what we think is a good record. We want to celebrate Paulie's creative works. So we've decided, we already have this stuff booked. We cancelled a couple of things at the front end. We were going to do a thing at the grand final down here in Victoria and stuff. We just went up to doing that. But we will start the dates that are in the diary as of like next week or the week after. So yes, we are going to get out there. It's going to be a little bit weird for us, but we've had such an incredible outpouring of love online and in person. People literally coming up to me in the shopping centre saying, "Hey man, I'm so sorry for your loss." And people have been really real about it. It's actually been really encouraging to hear and see the human side of people that's brought out in our presence. So it kind of made us feel like, yeah, we should go out and play this record and continue on, for at least for the time being.
All right, mate. Well, we've literally only got 60 seconds left. So thanks very much for your time, Jimmy. I know it couldn't have been easy for you, mate. All the best for tomorrow. Give Dave a hug for us, bro, and we'll catch you next time you come back to Brizzy.
Thank you so much for your time and your support. Thanks for that review. That's awesome.
No worries at all, Jimmy. You take care, bro.
Will do, man. Take care.
Yeah.
What have I done? What can I crimson blood, conversations, he and her, nothing said, no one heard a word, a line of vultures, red in zigzag, red sack stooge, holding the bag, no time to think, I gotta burn a jag. What have I done? What can I do? Can we work it out? Got nothing to lose. Dialed up and sliding south. Intravenous near my mouth. My way in is your way out. No win, no prize. The drum is strong.